Welcome to the Power 2 Pod. My name's Andy,
And I'm Jason.
and this is going to be our Week 3 preview episode where we preview the week ahead. We're going to touch on our game of the week, and then we're going to touch on 4 or 5 Big Ten and SEC games, and then give you our lock of the week. So let's get started with our game of the week. Game of the week this week is going to be Alabama visiting Wisconsin. Wisconsin is seeking its first 3-0 start since 2019. And if you look, the last time Wisconsin got a win over a top 5 opponent was way back in 2016 against LSU. So it's been a long time since Wisconsin got a really big win. And it's very rare for Alabama or any SEC team to come as far north as Wisconsin, especially early in the season. So got a lot of unknowns and a lot of firsts in a long time coming up for this matchup.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't really expect the game to withhold the hype. Everybody's talking about Alabama coming to Wisconsin, the SEC versus the Big Ten, but, Bama opens up -16 road favorites. It's never a good sign when you're that highly favored on a road game. So, unfortunately, Wisconsin is going to have to pull out all the stops to even be competitive in this game. But I feel very confident in Alabama just running their offense, stopping the run on defense, and just kind of running away with this game away from Wisconsin. I just don't think that Luke Fickell will be able to maintain. Like I said, I can see like a slow start in the first half for both teams, but I think Luke Fickell won't be able to outlast the Alabama team.
Yeah, I mean, Wisconsin, they haven't looked super impressive the first 2 weeks against lower competition. But if Van Dyke can have what he was capable of at Miami a couple years ago, I mean, you got a shooter's chance. I mean, if week 2 proved anything, it's still hard to win a college football game, especially on the road. So there's always that aspect of it too, is you still got to play the game. You got to win the game. I think the spread, like you said, is like 16, depending on what sports book you're looking at. So, you're almost looking at 3 scores there. Wisconsin's going to have to show something they haven't showed in the first 2 weeks, which, hey, maybe they've been keeping it super vanilla the first 2 weeks just to hide everything from Alabama. But if you just look at pure talent and athletes, Alabama obviously has the advantage when it comes to just talent, especially at the quarterback position where, Jalen Milroe, he's been, stellar the first 2 weeks. He's already got 9 touchdowns in the first 2 games. He's actually completing his passes better. He's at 65% completion rate right now. So if you look at how he's been playing, and on the flip side of that, how Wisconsin's quarterback's been playing, kind of completely opposites there. So it's definitely gonna be a tall task for Wisconsin this week.
Yeah, especially when like you said, it kind of comes down to quarterback play, plays a big part in these big games. Van Dyke's QBR right now is like 31. That's extremely low for the talent that he has faced so far. And then he's gonna host an Alabama SEC defense. It's just not gonna look good. Paper, it's just not looking good for that Wisconsin team to be able to really come out and do a whole lot.
Yeah, and like I've
It's
said in the
unfortunate
past,
that I just don't think it's gonna live up to the hype of a game that it could have been, 7 years ago when Wisconsin was going to championship games and doing all that, and Nick Saban, but now, Wisconsin's still trying to figure out their identity with Luke Fickell.
yeah,
They
this is what
still
happens.
don't have it.
Right, this is what happens when you fire a coach that'll win you 9 or 10 games a year. I mean, your 2 biggest examples that are Wisconsin, when they fired Christ and brought in Luke Fickell, who's supposed to be the home run hire, hasn't exactly got it going yet. And then you look at Florida, they did the same thing. He was going 9 wins, 10 wins, but wasn't getting over that hump. They replaced him with Billy Napier, and he hasn't pieced it together either. So, I mean, sometimes I'd rather go 9-3 or 10-2 than 8-4 or 7-5. And then one thing here to also remember, like I've said before, Tyler Van Dyke, quarterback for Wisconsin, he really struggles against zone defense. So if Alabama comes out and goes super zone heavy, I think Wisconsin's really going to struggle here. So with that said, Jay, why don't you start us off with a prediction for this game? Why don't you start off with the prediction for this game?
And quarterback play is on two different levels right now between Monroe. I think Alabama's defense is just going to come out super aggressive out on the road. So I really don't see this to be much of a competitive game. And especially with it, I'm pretty sure it's a noon game. So, I mean, the environment in Wisconsin's pretty hostile, but it's much more lax as a nooner game versus like a night game. So I think Bama takes it pretty easily.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go same thing with you. It'd be really hard to pick Wisconsin in this spot. I think, score wise, I could see Alabama 41, Wisconsin 17 is the score I'm gonna throw out there. I just don't see it being all that competitive with just what the two teams have showed so far this season. And then with that, let's jump into our other top games of the week. I'll get us started here in the Big Ten. Kind of a rivalry week as far as the newcomers to the Big Ten. First kind of rivalry game, we got Oregon visiting Oregon State. So all obviously big game there. Both teams are 2-0. Oregon's really kind of struggled to look as dominant as people thought they were, which has resulted in them kind of falling down the rankings here. When you're looking at this game, you'd really like to see Oregon's offense. It's been going, but it hasn't been putting up the points that we're used to seeing from Nix, basically. Gabriel's been super efficient, but they're not finishing drives and not putting up the points on the board to dominate. Like say Ohio State has. Oregon State lost a lot with Jonathan Smith leaving for Michigan State, and they're trying to build back up, not being in a power conference anymore. Staying in the Pac-2 there with Washington State. You're looking at a kind of depleted Oregon State team, but still a solid team nonetheless. Oregon is a big favorite, but with a rivalry game, anything can happen. I don't really see Oregon falling to Oregon State, but I could definitely see this being, Oregon's third straight close game. I mean, the only reason they beat Boise State last week was they had 2 special teams touchdowns. You don't get that every game. You can't count on special teams touchdowns for winning big games. But maybe Oregon finally gets something, started and starts punching into the end zone with Gabriel and James and get those receivers really involved that, they went out in the transfer portal and got.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of a game that Oregon kind of really can break out and show them they're the real deal. Maybe they took a little hit to their pride, falling on the rankings a little bit. So I could see it kind of going the other way, where Oregon gets early and just keeps running with it and kind of shows the nation like they're still a contender down over there in the Big Ten. But moving down south, I'll highlight a game for Georgia is traveling to Kentucky. Georgia opens as a -22 favorite in the road, and Kentucky I don't think knows who they are yet. They came out strong the first week, obviously against lesser talent, and then South Carolina just kind of took over that game and absolutely dominated. And Brock Vandagriff just struggled. Like I said, they only had like 17 passing attempts. He only had 30 or 40 yards. Unfortunately, going against the Georgia defense, I don't expect Vandagriff to have much different game. Unfortunately, like I said, Georgia's going to be able to stop the run a little bit better than South Carolina. So this Kentucky offense can really struggle in back-to-back weeks, which will really just kind of hurt their confidence. I feel like they were pretty confident coming into this year. Like I said, they had a really good transfer class, I should say. So, and I actually kind of thought they would be more middle of the road in the SEC this year. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I definitely give the edge to Georgia this week going into Kentucky.
Yeah, definitely a rough start to the season for Kentucky, not going exactly how they planned. Um, Falling to South Carolina in the way they did. Now, hey, here comes the number one team in the country. Uh, Coming back north just a little bit. Next game I want to highlight is the Notre Dame coming to Purdue. Notre Dame's coming in still ranked even after falling to Northern Illinois. So still, a big game, especially for Notre Dame. You look at Notre Dame, if they were to fall to Northern Illinois and Purdue, I would assume their playoff chances, even with the expanded playoffs, are slim to none. And Purdue's no slouch. They're bringing back Hudson Card, which is one of the better QBs in the Big Ten. And then with Ryan Walters, you're always going to have a really good defense as well. And Notre Dame's quarterback, Riley Leonard, he's coming in with a injury to his non-throwing shoulder. I mean, they still have Love running the ball, but Leonard really hasn't really got it going um, as much as Sam Hartman did last year, and it's really hurt Notre Dame. They any good team right now, you got to have that quarterback elevate your play. And Hudson Card's able to do that for Purdue. They run a offense that high scoring. They're running the Texas Tech style air raid over there, and then like I said, with Ryan Walters, he's coming into a second year, hit the transfer portal hard on the defensive side of the ball, brought in a few Georgia guys to kind of bulk up that depth and really focus on getting that defense to where he has to be, where he wants it to be. If you're looking at the line right now, currently ESPN Bet has it as Notre Dame 10.5 point favorites. I honestly would not be surprised to see Purdue win this game, especially with how Notre Dame looked and kind of what Marcus Freeman said. We just want the quarterback to do what we tell him was kind of like his sentiments during the game. And don't do too much. Just run the plays out. He's not giving his quarterback any kind of leeway to make a play, basically. And it's showed. Notre Dame really hasn't shown that they have the playmaking ability at the wide receiver position or tight end position yet. And if you're looking at Purdue, they can be explosive enough to win a game like this, especially with the defense they have. So like I said, even being a big underdog at home, I would not be surprised if Purdue, upsets Notre Dame and then Notre Dame's going to fall outside the rankings.
Yeah, yeah, and it was a huge blow to Notre Dame because this was their year to be kind of a shoe-in to the expanded playoffs. They have a more than easier schedule than they normally do, and they already fumbled the ball, and they lost to Northern Illinois. Like you said, now every game they basically, in my eyes, have to win to be in the playoffs. Even if they lose, I mean, I guess if they lose to USC at the end of the year, depending on how USC pans out, but I don't know. To me, they have to win out, and it all relies on their offense. Their defense did not play bad against Northern Illinois, but their offense was just that bad. And Riley Leonard has not been the leader that they need on that offense. And like you said, he just can't be creative in that offensive scheme to make plays like he did at Duke. So it's just solely on the offense on how well that team is going to come out and play. But moving on to another SEC game I want to highlight will be Missouri is hosting Boston College. Missouri opens up as a -16 favorite, but to me this could be a close game. I feel I was surprised when I seen the spread was pretty that high. It's 3 scores because Bill O'Brien and Boston College have been good. They've came out and played tough. They played Florida State tough. And I think that it's a different Boston College team to where they can't just be overlooked. They're not just an easy win over there in the ACC anymore. Granted, Missouri's at home, and they have a seasoned players coming back with Brady Cook as their quarterback. Like I said, they got the Luther Burden and that other wide receiver had a really good game last week, and I cannot um drawing a blank. Missouri's coach has really been turning around that program. They finished last year as a top 10 team. And so I definitely think Missouri takes it, but I think it should be a lot more competitive game and a closer game than what I think a lot of people will predict.
Yeah, Coach Bill O'Brien. I mean, he proved at Penn State, in those 2 seasons he was there. He's a good coach. He's going to get the most out of his team. And with that quarterback he has, he's Castellanos. He's super, he's special. He can make a bunch of plays. So I feel like as long as he can continue to make plays, Boston College has a puncher's chance. But it is a different animal they're going against with the SEC defense. So it's definitely a step up in competition. Next game here for the Big Ten, we're going to stay with the newcomers to the Big Ten. We're going to go Washington with their rivalry game against Washington State. Kind of a close spread here. Washington's only favored by 4.5 at home. Both teams are 2-0. And as you know, with Washington, they only returned one starter. They lost 21 starters to either the draft or the transfer portal. Well, completely different team. We only have 2 weeks of a sample size for them, so it's really hard to narrow down what Washington is at this point. Rodgers has looked good so far. I mean, in 2 games, he has over 500 yards passing, 5 touchdowns. Then the running backs looked really good as well. He's over 200 yards rushing in 2 games and I believe 3 touchdowns. So the offense is really kind of cooking, but it's still hard to tell what this team really is. Rivalry games, keep harping on, rivalry games are different and it's just hard to win in college football. But, Washington State's in that same place as Oregon State where they fell down basically to a group of 5 conference essentially, lost a ton of players. Their quarterback Mater is basically their entire offense. So if Washington's able to shut him down, I think Washington will come away victorious in this game. But like I said, Washington, we're still getting a feel for them. I don't think we'll really get a feel for them until they really start hitting the Big Ten schedule. But with the rivalry game coming up, it's a good measuring stick game for them and see kind of what they're made of.
Yeah. I think I'm on the opposite side of that one. I think Washington State might leave there with a victory. Like you said, Washington just has so much turnover, so much turnover staff, so much player turnover that, it's just like, do they overlook this game? Do they overlook the rivalry? It's because there's so many new starters, so many new players and staff. And, Washington State looked pretty good last week, I think, against Texas Tech, and they played really well. So I think they'll definitely be more comfortable with their identity and their schemes as a team to where I think they might beat Washington this week. Another game that I want to highlight will be Tulane traveling to Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a -13 favorite, but Oklahoma struggled last week against Houston. I think they won like 16-12, which is not Oklahoma's type of way of playing football. Usually you think Oklahoma, they're putting up points, they're putting up 40, 50 points a game, and it didn't happen there. And that Jackson Arnold as their quarterback, he is yet to find a rhythm in this offense. He has struggled. So with the Tulane defense, it's always pretty tough and rowdy. I could see them putting it to them, and I wouldn't be surprised if Tulane upsets Oklahoma this week.
Yeah, it's a tough spot for Oklahoma. I haven't really seen them get going as well as they had hoped. They get another game here before the SEC schedule ramps up here where, you really want to see them kind of come out and dominate a group of 5 team like they should if you're going to be in the SEC. The last game here I'm going to highlight is my game of the week. Indiana's heading over to UCLA. I'm super high on Indiana this year. with Coach Sig over there. I believe he's just put in a new culture. He's brought in the players he likes. It's a different Indiana team, and the schedule really breaks out for them to be successful this season. But they're heading out to the West Coast. Really the first Big Ten team heading out to the West Coast under the new Big Ten. Just Rourke, he's been super solid for them as quarterback. As we know, Indiana scored over 70 points last week against an FCS team, but nonetheless, it's still hard to score 70 points. They've been really balanced. And then on the flip side of that, UCLA has kind of really struggled to kind of get it going offensively. The running game's been really, really lagging behind. I seen one of the coaches for Indiana said today that UCLA runs a pro-style offense, but they quite haven't figured out their identity yet, so they're kind of disjointed, and they just haven't figured it out yet. With the new OC, Eric Bieniemy there, coming from Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't have Patrick Mahomes at UCLA right now. Garbers is serviceable as a quarterback, but I think UCLA's big problem right now is they're unable to run the ball. I mean, Garbers is leading the team in rushing with 47 yards after the first one game. Indiana, like I said, they've shown that they have playmakers now on the outside, and their defense has also stepped up a little bit too. Line right now at ESPN Bet is Indiana's 2.5-point favorites, or that's what it opened at and moved to 3 right now. The only thing that worries me about this game for Indiana is the fact that they are traveling west, so they haven't done this before. Football, the creatures of habit, on this day at this time we do this. The schedule gets thrown to the wind, kind of. It's going to be a night game at UCLA, so 7:30 kick, not quite under the lights to start the game, but it's prime time NBC Peacock game, so Indiana UCLA is going to kind of highlight the Big Ten for the the first conference primetime game of this new Big Ten era.
Yeah, absolutely. My final game is Texas A&M traveling to Florida. Texas A&M is a -3 favorite. Both these teams did not start the year off how they would hope. Texas A&M took a loss to Notre Dame, and Florida took a loss to Miami. This is the kind of game that is going to make or break your season. You need this game to win, give you confidence, and push forward throughout the season. Like I said, when this is SEC conference game, we're going to start the conference schedule now that it's time. So, and Florida, they have one of the hardest schedules I've seen in quite some time. So, like I said, if they lose against Texas A&M, who has, like I said, looked good, but then has looked off. Like I said, if they lose to them, it's just not going to be a good season for Florida. It's just going to be loss after loss. And then, like I said, I just don't know how well Graham Mertz is going to be for this Florida offense. He's an above average quarterback, but I think the team would be definitely more dynamic with DJ Lagway. Obviously, they're a little hesitant given the seniority to Graham, and they don't want DJ to get hurt or start him too soon. But like I said, you're gonna see DJ Lagway again sometime this season because they're just gonna look for answers and they're gonna get desperate this season to just find wins where they don't hope to have wins. But I think Texas A&M takes this one in the swamp. This Florida team is just not good. They have not been good in the last couple of years. Like you said earlier, Billy Napier was supposed to be the answer down there in Florida, and he's just the complete opposite. I just don't think he's able to get it done. So I see Texas A&M taking this one.
Yeah, definitely a tough spot for Billy Napier, and it'll be nice to see kind of Mike Elko first really true road game and kind of see how he fares in the swamp because it's a hard place to win, even though, Miami blew them out in week 1. That'll do it kind of for our highlighted games. Let's move on now to our odds on campus segment here where we pick 3 games or 3 betting lines that we really like. I'll get us started here. I'm looking at the Arkansas State-Michigan game. I really think Michigan's going to be able to kind of bounce back from that super disappointing game against Texas. The line's sitting right now at -23. So you look at that going against Arkansas State. At some point, Sharon Moore and Campbell there, the OC, they have to find some offense, whether that's with Orgy, Tuttle, Warren. They have the speed on the outside with Morgan, and they have yet to get Donovan Edwards going. So I think we could really see Michigan kind of bounce back strong here. And I like to see them cover that -23 against Arkansas State and kind of, remind people that, hey, we're still a good team, because there's been a lot of criticism on that for coming out so offensively bad against Texas. The next bet I'm looking at here, I'm going to go with the Central Michigan-Illinois game. Illinois is coming off a big upset win against Kansas, where they did, neither team looked especially great offensively. It was kind of a defensive battle, and then Illinois was able to come back in the fourth quarter and come back and win. I'm really kind of looking at, Illinois kind of having a letdown after, it was a big win for them, beating a ranked Kansas team at home. They stay at home. The line's currently 16.5 in favor of Illinois. I'm actually going to take Central Michigan plus 16.5 in this game. And really, I don't think Illinois is going to be in any danger of losing this game, but I could see them not covering this game and kind of having a little bit of a letdown without, letting down in the win-loss category. The final game I'm going to highlight here for our odds on campus segment is going to be the Iowa-Troy game. Kind of the opposite feeling of, Illinois. Lost a heartbreaker to Illinois or Iowa State last week with that field goal, and being in control of that game for so long. Iowa welcomes in Troy this week. Line sitting, same as Arkansas State, -23, total 39.5. This is a game where I'm really going to look at the under, the 39.5. I think Iowa, Troy is 0-2 to start the season off. I could see Iowa winning this game in Iowa fashion, 20-something to nothing, and I feel like that under 39.5 is a pretty good bet.
Yeah, records show that any under on Iowa should be profitable to take. So some of the games that I want to look at on our odds is I want to start off with Boston College at Missouri. The over-under is 53.5. I believe I would take the under in this game. Boston College likes to run the ball. I think one of Bill O'Brien's kind of game tactics or strategy is to minimize Missouri's offensive possessions to stay in the game, be close, be competitive against these bigger schools. So I really like the under 53 on that matchup there. Another one that I am looking at is Texas A&M against Florida. I really like Texas A&M -3. Like I said, that Florida team has just not been able to compete very well, especially in the SEC games. -3 is a really close spread. Like I said, I know Texas A&M did not look great against Notre Dame, and then that looks even worse now that Notre Dame has lost to North Illinois, but I don't think that dictates this Texas team. So I really like Texas A&M to cover the -3 in that game. My next and final game that I want to do will be Alabama and Wisconsin. -16 seems like a lot for a road team to come on the road, but like I said, I think that they will run a zone defense. They'll get to Van Dyke and he will cause turnovers. So I definitely like the -16 for Bama to cover that. I think turnovers will be a huge part of this game, and I think Alabama will be able to run away with it for sure.
Yeah. So now let's move on to and kind of wrap up the show here with our lock of the week. This is one game a week that we like to pick, and this is our lock. This is what we're most confident about. This week I am gonna go with the Indiana UCLA game as my lock of the week. I am going to lock in Indiana -3. I think Indiana, like I said, they've had a culture shift. They're bought in. They're heading out to UCLA, which is, kind of struggling. Even though it's kind of struggled that first game out, offensively. So I'm looking at Indiana -3 as my lock of the week.
Yeah. For my lock, I am going to hesitantly take the Georgia spread. Georgia does not like to run up the score very much, and more times than not, I'm pretty sure they do not cover when they're highly favored, but right now it's sitting at -22. If South Carolina can hold them to 6 and score like 30, I'm pretty sure Georgia can top that. And, they might shut them out if they play similar to what they played against South Carolina. So I definitely like the -22 for Georgia as my lock for this week.
Yeah, so there you have it. That's our week 3 preview for the college football slate. Us, focusing on the Big Ten and SEC like we like to do. If you're watching on YouTube or TikTok, please like, subscribe, review. And let's have a fun week 3. Thanks for joining us.
See ya.